Good morning. We'll jump straight into it today. So yesterday we cut out the hole for the ventilation fan and we have stuck it on. So first thing I'm going to do this morning is to test and make sure that the seal is watertight. It's been curing overnight and I've had it weighted with some bricks. So that should have formed a seal. So let's get to it. So it looks like it has formed and hardened correctly. It's sealed all the way around. It's a little bit dirty from the bricks, but I'll clean that off. So yeah, it looks like it. I don't see any bubbles or anything along the side. So I'm going to test it two different ways. One is to just dump some water on it and see if it comes out the other side. And second is to get the hose and do a constant spray for, I don't know, a minute or so, maybe a bit longer, and we will check out both the big drop of water and as if it were raining. So for the first test, I'm just going to dump about 1.5 liters of water on the top side. We'll see if there's any leakage come through. I don't see anything coming through. It is from here, but not from the fan. Okay, so we'll run on to the second test, which is with the hose, and I'll leave that running for a minute or two. Okay, so I don't see any water coming through, and that was moderate rain flow, and there's wind at the moment as well, so it was kind of blowing back and forwards. So I'm relatively confident with that. So we'll continue on with the build. Should I wire it up? Yeah, okay. Let's wire up the ventilation fan. Actually, just before I start getting on the wiring, I'm just going to paint the area white again. I left some scuff marks and the jigsaw also scratched it. So I'll paint it back to white, and we'll let it dry while we're doing the electrical. So a couple of episodes ago we discovered that the body of the car is acting as the negative conduit cable. The entire body. So all I have to do for the negative side is to run a cable from the electrical appliance to one of the screws in the car that's attached to the body. So it's a way to cut out a lot of extra cabling, unnecessary cabling. So with the negative cable, so I've got the two different cables here. With the negative cables, I am going to run it to this side panel here for the ventilation fan. So I will run it down to there, and screw it into one of those screws. With the positive terminal, I will run it up along this wall here, the corner of it. I could hide it behind the walling, or I could get conduit tubing, which I do have. I just haven't decided if I'm going to use it for this year. But I will be using the conduit tubing for when I have the kitchen and the other appliances that go with that. But that's going to be a bit lower. For the ventilation fan, let's just run it along the top, because it's just the one cable. It should be fine. So let's get started on that. So this is the bottom of the ventilation fan, the side that sits inside the cargo bay. So at there's a power switch here, which you can choose the speed of the fan. But on the other side, there's 3 prongs. I'll show you a bit closer. So there's actually 2 holes on each of those prongs. So the bottom hole is slightly smaller than the top one. So the bottom one is where the cable from the fan is going into. So that will just sit in there, and you can just tie it around. And the top one, which is slightly bigger, is where your cable run is going to. You can just tie it around, but I actually have bought terminals, electrical terminals. So with there's different variations that you can get, and I've got two different ones here, but there's about 6 or 7 different ones that you can get. Actually, let me find one that's exposed. Okay, so the 2 different types of terminals that I've gotten is, one just looks like a loop. So this is what I will be using for the negative ends. Because I'm going to be attaching them to the screws, I can just put the screw straight through and it'll fasten on. I don't need to worry about securing it with extra electrical tape or anything like that. So that will be the negative side. With the positive side, it kind of it looks like an M shape, but the bottom bits of it are curved in as well, so it's kind of like that. So I don't know if that will focus on. So one side is flat and the other side is just open space. So with these ones, because these have prongs, you can just attach it on and they sit in. It's nice and easy to put in, and it'll secure it on as well. So I have the same connectors on the battery system. So the previous owner, I did actually try and find these at all sorts of stores, so like the hardware store, every car an RV store that I could, but I just could not find one. Actually, I'm not going to take it off, but basically it just has those spokes on it. So there's 4 different spokes, and it's connected up to the battery terminal. So it's nice and easy for me. So on one end of the cable run, it'll have that, and the other end it'll have that as well, for the ventilation fan. So let's get started. Okay, let's start with terminating these cables. So firstly, what I am going to do is to measure out the length that I'm going to need, and then we will run it through, but we won't terminate it just yet, just so that we can put more slack on if we need it. Okay, so I'm glad I haven't sealed this off just yet, because it means that I can push the cable through. So that's what I'm going to start with. So I did mention in a previous video that this cable that I'm using is auto electric cable. So you can get different ratings for the cabling that you're going to get. Since the stuff like the lights and the ventilation and the 12-volt power appliances aren't very high electrical, it doesn't need as much conductivity. So this one is rated at 10 amps, which is more than enough for what I need it for. As I said, the lights are only about 2. The vent, I think, is 4, and the water pump is 5. The fridge, I will have to check on that, but for now the vents, this will be more than enough. So I am leaving a bit of slack here, just so that I can connect it up, and any excess I can just tuck in under. So with this cable run, I did leave a little bit of a gap. So I don't know if you remember, but the wood had a 5 centimeter differential between the ends, and I didn't want to have to buy another piece of wood. It was going to be covered with carpet anyway. So there's 2.5 centimeters on each side, where I can run the cables through. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it through the carpeted side, and then run it down, and then run it through this gap here. So I'm leaving quite a bit of excess here. I don't think I'll need that much, but it's better to have more than to have a shorter cable. So we'll cut it off here, and then we'll shove it through on the back. I just remembered I actually tucked this carpet into the backing of the wall. So if I put the cable through the carpet, it's going to go behind the wall. So I'm just going to use a space down the bottom because there's no wall for it to tuck into there. So yeah, we'll run it all the way down. Actually, let's plug it into the circuit breaker. I just won't plug the circuit breaker into the battery just yet. I'm just going to mount the back plating onto the wooden frame. This is the thing that the circuit breakers sit on, so they clip in here. Okay, so now that I have the cable run and I'm ready to put on the fuse onto the switchboard, I am going to attach it to the fuse. So if you remember, there's two spokes. In between the middle of the spokes there's a spring, and that unlatches when there's too much power going to it. And just get into a more comfortable position. Okay, so I just need to unscrew take out the metal prong. And expose the wire. Okay, so I have my wire exposed. I'm just gonna twist it to tie the loose ends if there are not. Okay, so this cable is pretty well and tightly packed, so it didn't take much. So I'm gonna put this end on the spokes here and then secure it in with the exposed part. So on this spoke there is a hole, so I'm gonna loop it in so it doesn't fall out. Just like that. Okay, and there you go, it's secured. Actually, I think I will connect that end up. I just won't, I'll terminate it, but I just won't have it connected in. So I'm just going to terminate these ends. So I'm scoring the insulation at about 2 centimeters, 20 millimeters. That should be enough to reach the end of the prongs from the terminals. So with these terminal ends that I have, these are the M-shaped ones. You just put the cable through the hole. It is a bit too long that I've cut, so I'm just going to cut the cable off. Yep, so that's looking better. So once you have it in there, you crimp it with just pliers or a crimping tool, and it'll bend the metal inside, locking it in place. Okay, give it a good tug to see if you can pull it out. And once you're confident, I'm going to add a little bit more of insulating tape just to hold the two together. But the the insulation that comes with this terminal, it covers the entire thing anyway. Okay, there you go. Connect it. Okay, so I have my positive side all hooked up. The circuit breaker is in. I have both ends terminated. I just want to do a test run with the lights. So I have the circuit breaker off at the moment, and I have the negative end of this hooked up to a screw on the panel here. So this test is one to make sure that this cable is running correctly, including the circuit breaker. So I want to make sure that's working correctly, and two, that this screw here is actually hooked up to the main body of the car, because I haven't tested out with this panel yet. So I'm just gonna hook the positive end of this light in, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so let's go turn the circuit breaker on and we'll see if it lights up. Yes, okay, excellent. Great, so now I know that there's electricity running. That panel is connected to the main body, and the circuit breaker is working. Okay, now I know that the electricity is flowing. I'm gonna hook up the negative side. So I will run it from here up into there. So I ended up having to run the cable along this metal trimming behind it, and then up into the ceiling. The staggering pattern of the wood that's behind there, and since I've put filler as well, it hasn't given me enough space to run the cables down, unfortunately, but this should be fine because this is all going to be covered up anyway. Okay, I'm going to hook up the bottom bit of it now. As I said, these just need to go into the bottom end of the prongs, and then I can slip this on top, and this should hold that bottom prong in it anyway. Even if it does come loose, it's not, there's no electricity running from these. So if this does come loose anyway, it's going to break the circuit. There's no danger there. Okay, there we go. Have it hooked up. I'm just going to turn the safety fuse on. And hopefully we have a working fan. Yes, so that is on. but I haven't turned the power switch on, so I don't know what's going on there. Good news, bad news. The circuit breaker works, which is excellent. I accidentally touched the positive and negative cable and it flicked off straight away. But I am not sure why this switch isn't working. I might just add my own switch to it. Yeah, there's something going on here. There's no reason why it shouldn't be working. The circuit's not completed unless the switch itself is incorrectly wired. Yeah, I'm not sure. For now, I'm just going to hook it in as it is and use the circuit breaker as the switch. But I'll probably add a wall switch here to turn it on and off. Okay, so now that I have the ventilation fan in, the next job will be to put some wood paneling on the roof. That way I can mount the water tank and the solar power. I did have some concerns with the water tank. It's designed to go on the side of an RV unit. I might, depending on how I do the decking, I may just get some PVC piping to store water in, but I'll just check at the hardware store and see if I can get some tools to secure down the water tank. But if not, it's not a big deal. The PVC piping is not that expensive. I need to measure my car to see if the wood planks will fit in it. I'd prefer to take my car just because it's easier. But if not, then I will come back with the van. Yeah, so let's head up to the hardware store. I just realized the battery's almost dead on my camera, so I might leave you on charge. But yeah, I'll scope it out and then we'll continue on. I'm back from the hardware store, but I didn't end up getting any wood. I need to take a few more measurements, and I also need to check and see if I can drill through the roof racks that are currently there. It looks like they're made out of structural steel, and I don't know if I can actually drill through that or not. So I'll do a test run on that before buying anything, because the wood is actually quite expensive. So I don't want to buy the whole kit if I can't drill into that steel. I'm gonna try and drill into the middle of one of the racks here, just because if I don't end up using it, it won't be seen. Okay, so it did take a while, but I can drill into it. So at this stage, what I might do is get the framing, and then get the decking maybe tomorrow. Yeah, because I'm pretty sure it'll take the rest of the day for me to make drill marks in. I am also going to take a spare piece of wood, Yeah, so I'll take a spare piece of wood and drill a hole in it this size. That way I know what size bolts to get. Okay, so I'm back from the hardware store. I got some bolts, and the wood behind me is the pine wood that will be the frame that the decking sits on. It's the same type of wood that you would have on your decking at home. The guy at the hardware store did say that was the best because it's exposed to the elements. Anything else would rot. So I also asked them to pre-cut the wood. So they're measured to length, the width of the van. So it should be pretty easy to put on. I just expect it to be a bit time consuming just because it takes so long to drill through that structural steel. Okay, so I did finish drilling the holes into the structural steel on the roof racks. It did take quite a while, so I think it was about an hour and 20 to drill 7 holes. So it is quite tough to get through. It just takes a lot of time and a lot of weight behind it. I ended up having to lay down just so that I could apply more pressure to the drill, but I didn't break the drill bit, so bonus there. So the way that I have these holes drilled in is 3 on the front, 2 in the middle, so 2 in the middle there, and 2 on the back. So you see these ridges on the top of the roof. I have these 2 on the 3rd and 5th panel, and I have the back 2 on the 2nd and 6th panel. Whereas the front ones, I have them on 1, 3, and 7. Is that right? 1, 5, no, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 4, and 7. So it is an even distribution of weight, but I put an extra support at the front because the front will have extra force applied to it with the wind. So with the wind that's coming up, it'll need a bit more extra support. I also plan to put the solar panel and the water tank on this side, so we'll be carrying a bit more weight on this side. I think I got about 20 minutes of sunlight left, so I might be able to actually let's wait till tomorrow because I do want to make sure it's level before I bolt it in. But I have checked the length is correct, and also the size of the bolt. So there's enough leeway for me to apply the nut on the end, and it's going through both the pine and both layers of the structural steel. You might be wondering why I didn't just drill into this downways. The reason for that is because it's actually rubber at the top, and this actually pulls off. So if I drilled anything into there, this would just come straight off. Okay. I could have drilled all the way down here, but it would be very difficult for me to run nuts all the way through the length of that. So this way is more efficient for what I'm building at the moment. So once I have the timber, the pine boards down, then on top we will just lay decking wood and drill down into these pine ones. I will be also bracing it with reinforced metal around the edges. That way, if for whatever reason it does come off, it won't come off piece by piece. It'll be one fell structure. It's going to catch onto something before that happens, but it shouldn't happen at all because there'll be the metal framework around it. Plus I will be putting reinforced brackets on the bottom side here and here, along all the bolted pieces. So it would take a lot of force to actually rip that off. Thousands and thousands of kilos of force. So I very much doubt it will come off. Yeah, so we have a plan for tomorrow. So I'm pretty pleased with the way things went today. I did catch up on quite a lot. So we tested the ventilation seal to make sure it was waterproofed. We added the bottom of the ventilation fan. We terminated the circuitry for it. We added the circuit breakers, and we are almost ready for our framework for the decking. So I'm glad we did get through quite a lot today, because tomorrow with the decking, the wood that I will be getting, so I've measured the roof rack rail runners, and it's exactly 2.4 meters. So initially I wanted it to extend all the way out to about here, because that would give me a good 60 centimeters more, a 3 meter roofing, but up to here is actually 2.4 meters, and I can actually get pre-cut packaged decking for that length. So I won't need to do any cutting or measuring or anything like that, just things that take up a lot of time. I'll just need to put support brackets and lay them on. So there's not an overly big job tomorrow. but it may take a while to do because one, it just takes longer to do stuff on the roof, and I'll have to do it one plank at a time, and then build the braces around. So for today, we will end it on a good note, so let's not tempt fate. Thanks again for joining.